So welcome to Scrapbook Live. Today is Wednesday, August 21st. I am Megan Jacks. Thanks for joining me today. Today's layout is out of my vault of things that I have shared with my customers in the past few years. This one was shared last summer when we had Fur Baby that first came out, and I had just gotten Kitty. And so I put together this layout just as a fun way to use up some strips of paper. It's a great one for scraps. I mean, we always love it when we can use up scraps of paper. And so this is a great one to do it with. You'll need just some scraps. I'm going to actually be cutting full sheets of paper because I didn't have scraps in the colors that I wanted. Actually, I just didn't want to go track some of them down. So I'm going to be using some full sheets of paper. We are going to have to cut a paper on the diagonal. You technically don't have to. You could leave that element out if you wanted to. I looked around for my 18-inch ruler, and I think it's still in a box somewhere. It's probably in a bigger box it's like a miscellaneous, like one of those things that when you're moving, like the last couple boxes are just crap that you got to throw in there. And I think that ruler had gotten set out because it was too big to fit in some of my other boxes, and I just don't know which box it's in. So I'm going to talk about other ways other than using a rotary trimmer plus the 18-inch ruler to cut your paper on the diagonal. And I'm going to have like the ultimate random, it's not a random way to do it. I happen to have an 18-inch paper cutter that's from my photography days when I had to cut down papers that were like 11 by 14s. So I'm going to be using that because I really don't like to fold my paper to cut the diagonal, but you can. All right, so we'll go ahead. We're going to get started. I'm going to switch over to my overhead camera and we will get this show on the road. I do see a question from Belinda. She's like, Kitty's already a year old. We've had Kitty for just about 14 months now. She is actually about a year and a half. Not quite a year and a half. She was born, her birthday is in March. She's I think it's St. Patty's Day baby. I'd have to double check that, but I'm pretty certain her birthday is the 17th of March. Okay, so we've got our handout here. You can see this is a pretty straightforward layout. It just has a nice visual appeal to it using all of those different papers within a collection, but it's a great one if you just want to use scraps. So this might be a layout, a idea that you come to once you've already started cutting into your papers. But this is a great one to show off all those different paper patterns and so forth. I do repeat things because you'll see here, we are using a 6-inch tall by 10 piece of cardstock to kind of create that pattern, the rectangle that has all those stripes in it. So when we cut these strips, I did it the 6 inches tall because then we can cut a 1-inch strip, a 1 by 12 piece, and cut it in half and actually get 2 pieces out of it. If I'd had it be 8 inches tall, then it would be, you couldn't just cut a 12-inch strip in half. So that's kind of why it was done as a 6-inch piece. It also gives that nice, where they meet as you're kind of cascading across the 2-page layout, is a nice option there. So the photos, as I mentioned in my Facebook post this morning, my photos are from a baseball game. We went to see the Diamondbacks play the Blue Jays. And this was right after my husband's birthday, 50th birthday thing, but I wasn't good. I didn't get his name up on the Jumbotron or anything like that, but I do have some pictures. And the one thing I do want to talk about in here too, is you may have saw a glimpse of it. I want to talk about using QR codes in your layouts because I have a video of the very last hit of the game. I was recording it when the D-backs won the game, and so I kind of have that, the fun of that afterwards. And I wanted to include a link to that. So if you're looking at the layout, you click, I don't know how long these QR code things and videos will be around. I mean, 100 years in the future, it may be completely different, but we'll figure it out. It'll be there. I may also still handwrite in the actual URL for the YouTube video. I uploaded the video to YouTube. I set it to not a private link, an unlisted link, and then copied the code over, the URL link over into one of the QR code generator websites, and I was able to get this. So I'll come back and talk a little bit more about that, but we will get started. You've got the pictures. The pictures and the team colors are really what are driving my my paper choices. So I went in and I got some kind of a darker teal color and cranberry cardstock. These are, and then gray. This darker teal color is out of the Polar Lights, Shades of Polar Lights paper pack. So it was a great option. The cranberry, the gray. I've got a couple of tonal blacks. These are, maybe both of them are out of the black and white collection. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to double check on that. I also have this one, which may have been, I have just a pack of black and white papers. I just throw all my black and white papers in. So that's what that's out of. I'm not 100% the collection, but I also did have two bright white pieces of cardstock. They're going to be my base paper. So I'm going to have, I wanted it to be kind of light and airy. I didn't want to use, like, say, one of the grays or something as my base paper. I'm going to use some of the bright white cardstock. So I'm going to set that aside for the moment because I don't need that right now. This paper here is going to be the one I'm going to cut on the diagonal later. I'm not going to cut it right now. We're going to focus on getting those stripes put onto our 6x10 rectangular piece of paper. So you are going to want to have, a scrap of paper or something that you can make that 6x10 rectangle out of. And it could be a piece of cardstock. It could also just be a piece of regular paper. It doesn't need to be like thick. I am just looking through my scraps. I'd had a piece, but of course, when prepping and moving things around, I misplaced it. So this is a piece of, I think, just some white cardstock. I'm going to go ahead and cut this down to 6x10. I'm going to cut this to 6 inches. Rotate and cut it 10. And now I'm going to go ahead and start cutting strips of paper. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 pieces here. I may come in with the red twice because that's more of the predominant color, I think. I don't know. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut 1 inch of each of these. And then as I'm laying it out, I will figure out how I want it to, what other color I'm going to bring in. So 1 inch strips, and I need, if you have 6 different colors, because you actually have to just cover, no, 5 will work. I'm sorry. I only need to cover 10 inches. So I need 10 1-inch strips that are 6 inches tall. So if I cut 5 strips, I cut each of those in half, I will have 10 strips that are 1 inch wide. Now I do say, I think in the blog post that I did for this, you are able to go ahead and cut whatever width you want to cut of these pieces. You just need to cut 10 inches or cover 10 inches of this strip. So you could make them different widths if you kind of want an eclectic look. I'm going kind of uniform, so they're all going to be the same width. But if you're working with scraps, you can totally patchwork this together however you want. I would recommend using full 6-inch pieces just because, whatever width you want, but have them still be that 6 inches tall. So there's the teal. I'm going to come in with cranberry. My pictures from the game are not the best. We had good seats, but as you know, I mean, even how far away you are from everything, they're just not the best quality, just using my cell phone. And I was really tempted to go look online and see if I could find some pictures from that game, like maybe like the professionals. Maybe there were some professional photos from the sports news people or whatever, but I didn't. It was also, we could have gone to a game on my husband's birthday. They were playing the Braves. However, the next day they started playing the Blue Jays. And so one of my favorite players plays on the Blue Jays. And so I was like, well, if we just go the next night. And we were also supposed to get a really good kind of, a free gift for coming, like, they give you like a giveaway, and they ended up not having the giveaway. They said quality control or something like that. I don't know. So I was kind of bummed, but the game was good. So here we go. I've got 5 pieces of 1x12 strips. I'm going to go ahead and cut these all in half at 6 inches. And this is a thing, if you want to use for these smaller cuts, you could totally use your guillotine trimmer, especially if you have the new one, because as we would see here with the new trimmer, it can be nice because then you're saving your blade and your mat. I can come this at 6 inches and cut. So it is a good option if you have these short little cuts like that. The photo trimmer can cut paper. It will be available to order by itself. If you didn't get it as part of the bundle, this trimmer will be available on Monday, the 26th. So will Croptoberfest, so will the autumn collection. It's called Autumn Cottage. And I believe there's going to be free shipping coming on Monday. So if you're got an order started, like a cart going in your account with Creative Memories, just sit tight for a few more days. We'll have all those details coming on Friday. So here we go. Here we can see I've got 10 pieces of paper, 6 inches tall. And now it's going to be time. I'm going to do a dry fit first. I want to kind of get a feel for how I want these to be put on here. Start with some gray. I'm going to keep my cardstock pieces, which are my gray and my red, separated from each other. I don't want them to be I stay with the repeating patterns. I started gray, blue, white, red, and I could go gray, blue, white, red, and the black. I think I'm going to go with that. I like that order is fine. I've got the cardstocks kind of away from each other. So I think that's going to be good. Now, when you're putting these on, remember that we're going to cut this piece on the diagonal. So you can see where I'm going to have little pieces up here, and I'm going to have some little pieces down here. So basically in this section and in this section up here, I want to make sure I'm using plenty of adhesive. So when I do trim and I have those small little triangles, that they don't fall off. I want to be more deliberate with my adhesive. So I'm going to use some repo adhesive. I'm going to put just a bunch of it up here for now, and then I'll come in and actually put some on my the actual strip of paper. I want to grab my, I'm looking at my handout to remind myself of the direction. Yeah, we will trim it from upper left to lower right. And I do want these to be as close to each other as possible. I do not want to see the white coming through the background if at all possible. And these just get laid on side by side. Be generous with your adhesive. This is kind of how I handle when I do like the sports teams and stuff. I was debating whether or not I would use some of the baseball uh, papers or so forth, but I really decided that I really just wanted to focus on the team colors. The D-backs kind of redid some of their colors, and I love the blue and the tealish aqua color that they got going this year. So I wanted to really play on those the red, and it's definitely my favorite color combo. Remember I talked about I needed lots of adhesive in this lower section. So I see that Leslie is asking, what is the green tape? So this is the Creative Memories. I am using the Repo adhesive in here, and the green refill. They had the special cases that came out in the different colors. The big thing, the green Repo adhesive, it comes in a green refill. That's how you know it's the Repo when you're just looking quickly to identify. So this just basically spits out these little dots that only attach themselves. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get that so you can see those dots in there, but there's little adhesive, tiny little dots. It might be easier to show you what it puts out on the paper. And they only stick to wherever you use them. So it's easy to, I don't know, it's probably my favorite adhesive versus the tape runner, which puts out, let me show you with the tape runner. I'll show you on the back of this. Well, the regular tape runner, it has like little strips like that. And the Repo adhesive is sometimes just a little bit more easy to move things around later, whereas the regular adhesive, it gets pretty tight pretty quick. Okay, so here we go. So I have 10 1-inch pieces on here, right? Well, you're gonna notice on the back, look how much overhang I have, right? So I think when I cut these, I either let me just double check. Did I short myself? No, but I definitely went wide on some of these pieces. So remember, this is the thing when you start piecing various strips together, 1-inch strips. If I cut these to 1 inch and 1/16, right? So 1 and 1/16, just a 16th of an inch bigger, even a 32nd of an inch bigger. I have 10 of those pieces cut just slightly bigger than an inch, like microscopically bigger than an inch, but that all adds up, it compounds, so that on over here, I'm like a solid, 3/8 of it, or 3/16 of an inch over, right? Not a big deal. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to trim it off. I don't want this one here, this end, to look weird. I am going to go ahead and leave it just as it is. It's going to be just fine as I do that. So I've got my piece here. You can, if you want, clean up your top and your bottom edge. Those will also be put at the top here, so I can clean those up once I actually get them on the layout if I feel that it's needed. So for now, I'm gonna leave it as is. Everything's pretty secure on here. It is gonna be time to go ahead and slice this on the diagonal. And when you're looking at this, as I mentioned, I am going to slice from the upper left to the lower right. So we're looking at step number 2 in the directions, and you can see what you want those triangles to look like, okay? So if you need to, I like to just grab my pieces. Here's my corners. I'm cutting from the upper left to the lower right. Grab those with my fingers and rotate them to get them in my trimmer how they need to go. And then I'm just lining up the corners along where the cut line is. And we'll go ahead. Okay, really quick. I see a question from Lori. Oh, she noted that this piece is different. So yes, let me go ahead and swap that around. Now I do have a little bit of permanent adhesive on there, but it's going to lift okay. Thank you, Lori, for picking that, noticing that. What I am going to do though is get just a little more adhesive on here. I think that's a chevron. No, yeah, I definitely needed to. That's going to be better. Definitely going to be better. Okay. Upper left, lower right, and trim. So there's my pieces. And you can look around, like I got a little bit of, didn't do a good job putting adhesive on this piece of cranberry. But you can see where we put that extra adhesive in these corners. That was just to help keep these smaller pieces on there. Okay, so that gets us through step 2. So now step 3 is where we talk about cutting the one piece of paper, the one we have a second designer piece. So we're going to cut on the diagonal, and it's going to give us a triangle. If you can imagine, we'll have a big piece of this black paper that is on the diagonal here. So I need to cut this piece from corner to corner. Normally I have my 18-inch ruler. I grab my rotary trimmer. Love the handheld rotary trimmer. I love my 18-inch ruler. I cannot find my 18-inch ruler. I think it's in a random box that has yet to be unpacked. Obviously, I have not in the past 2 months used my 18-inch ruler. So it's still on my list to find, or maybe just buy another one. So there's a couple different ways you can cut your 12-inch paper on the diagonal if you don't have the 18-inch ruler, if you don't have the rotary trimmer. You can fold your paper in half. On the diagonal. So what we would do here is I would fold from corner to corner. So if I want to cut this way, I would grab this corner up here and this corner here, and I would fold them. I would put this in my trimmer and cut here. That does give you a little bit of crease in your paper. That sometimes can bother people, sometimes it doesn't. It really just depends. I prefer in this particular case to not have to worry about how a crease showing in there, especially since I've got a darker paper here. So normally I'd have my 18-inch ruler and my rotary trimmer, but what I do have left over from my days as a photographer is a big old rotary trimmer that is 18 inches. So you can't even see top to bottom. I do not recommend buying this. From the standpoint, if all you need to do is cut your paper on the diagonal, just get yourself an 18-inch ruler and a rotary cutter, and you're good. You don't need to have this big beast around. But I already have it. So instead of folding my paper, I'm going to use what I have and remind myself of why I keep it around. I don't use it for this very often. This is the first time I've cut the scrapbook paper, at least in a long time, on the diagonal. So I'm lining it up here and at the bottom, and I'm going to go ahead and cut. So there we go. I have my 2 pieces cut on the angle. Works great. But like I said, if you're looking for a way to cut your paper on the diagonal without having to use folding it, just do the rotary trimmer with the 18-inch ruler. You'll actually find other uses for the 18-inch ruler. The rotary trimmer is pretty fun to use as well. Much easier to store those than it is that big cutter. All right, so we've got our 2 pieces cut on the diagonal. We are going to grab our background papers now. Like I mentioned before, I'm going to be using bright white. You do have a lot of overlap. You could, if you really wanted to, you could cut this paper here on the diagonal and the cardstock and paper weld things together if you really wanted to save on paper, but I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to move this cutter out of the way for the moment. And then what we have is we have our triangle pieces kind of get put in our border. So here you can see it's starting to look pretty good. I love it with the colors. As I mentioned, I love this blue color. I love the red. I love the gray in there. Got a little bit of white just to kind of keep it a little bit light, but here we go. We're starting to see those colors for the D-backs coming through. This obviously works for any sports team, anything that you just need a color theme. You can, find your papers that work for that. So I see a question from Bobby asking what kind of cutter is that? That's a Carl brand, C-A-R-L. They do make really nice trimmers. I mean, Creative Memories rotary trimmers is top notch, but if you're desperate, if you do think you would really utilize the larger kind of cutter, I do recommend the Carl if you want that 18-inch long, but like I mentioned, it's a bit of a beast to have to store. Something to consider if you're really looking into something, but otherwise just grab that rotary trimmer and an 18-inch ruler, and you'll be set. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and adhere these things in place because I like how they look. They look great. We're gonna go ahead, putting some repo adhesive in the corners of this. I wanna make sure those corners stick down good, and then I'm gonna come in with regular adhesive and just dot that along. Using way more adhesive probably than I need to, but I really don't want the paper going anywhere. And it just goes flush in the corner. And then we'll get this other side done as well too. This works really well. I mean, talk about sports colors, but this works really well. This concept of, mixing and matching your colors and your patterns, especially with Creative Memories, has had some of the tonal packs that have come out in the past couple of years. This is a great way to do it using the cardstock as well. But it is good for school colors. So if you're, really wanting to highlight school colors, especially when working with sports, maybe that Creative Memories doesn't have a lot of the sports stuff that goes. If you're a sports mom or grandma that has, those things, this works out really well to be able to do those. And that's what I've done, before in the past, is having to utilize a lot more color-based things than necessarily sports themed. I mean, this works for any sport. All right. So it doesn't matter if, I'll have baseball photos on there, but I could easily have gone to some other sport, some other event where this would work. So again, yeah, so hopefully you guys saw that I did use the Carl trimmer to do the 18-inch diagonal cut, because you can't cut a full 18-inch diagonal with the Creative Memories 12-inch trimmer. But if you are just a collector of things and you really want an 18-inch ruler or an 18-inch cutter, the Carl brand is what I would recommend. And you should be able to get it on Amazon. I've had mine for years and years and years, probably 15, 16 years by now. So I think it's available. I don't know. I have been able to reorder the little trimming mats that go inside of it. So I think it's still available. Okay, so here we go. This is our base layout. Now, one of the things I did do, you'll see on my original layout here, is I did come in with a border or a strip of some kind along this line. I ended up just using a piece of brown cardstock. I think I actually cut it with the hot fudge. I ended up using a decorative blade with the hot fudge with a piece of cardstock. So if I wanted to come in here, and I wanted to highlight, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come in with a thin strip of paper. So I'm going to use this striped paper because I think it'll be fun. A thin strip of striped paper along this edge, but I want to give it a little bit of accent. So I'm actually going to come in with some black. And I think I'm going to just use some black cardstock. I've got to grab a piece of that. And of course, I need to open a new piece of black. Let me see if I've got a long enough piece in just scraps. Let's see. I do want that to be black. And of course, I just don't have a piece of black cardstock. Maybe I have black shimmer. I do have black shimmer. I'll use some black shimmer. I am going to cut, so I have a thin strip of this stripe paper. I'm going to cut another thin strip of black shimmer paper to go on either side. I could have used black cardstock. So I cut this stripe piece at 1/4 inch. I'm going to come here and cut this just a little bit, the black a little bit bigger than 1/4 inch. I'm going to come out to just a little bit past 3/8, probably come out to, oh my gosh, a 7/16, so just shy of 1/2 inch, and see what that looks like. You could use a decorative blade if you wanted to. This might be a little too wide. Black gets a little lost down there, but I like it. I do like it. I'm going to leave it as that. So I'll cut another one at 7/16, just shy of that 1/2 inch. And I will cut another strip of this paper. Yeah, this layout is not hard. It's a great one though for just playing with the paper when you really want to highlight. You have lots of different, you can mix and match your collections. You can do all sorts of fun stuff with it. You could come in here with a border punch if you wanted to punch a border and come along there, you could. You can see in the sample that I originally made, I did use a one of the cat borders that was part of the Fur Baby collection. They had those laser cut borders. Ooh, do I want to use... I don't know, guys. I'm liking the diagonal. That might be nice too. Where did my other piece of paper go? Oh, oh, there it is. What do you guys think of that diagonal strip in there? Might be fun. It's a little bit, has a little bit more discernible pattern to it. Yeah, I'm gonna go diagonal. Yep, I think you guys, yeah, you're right. It definitely should be the diagonal. So I'll come in here, use the repo tape, and lay that down in the center. I'm down here at the bottom, you can't even see it. Lay it down the center of that black strip. And this just kind of caps off those, I mean, it's a pretty clean cut here because we obviously cut that with the trimmer. I just think it does a nice job just to cap it off. You could also just use a thin strip of paper. I wouldn't even have had to use the decorative piece here if I didn't want to, but you know, why not? And then you just lay this on here however works best. I want to have it so that for the most part, it doesn't, it caps it off nicely. I don't have a weird piece up here or down here at the bottom. I have a little bit to trim off, but for the most part, it should be good. Maggie's commenting, you could definitely come in and do rickrack. You could use a double rickrack if you wanted to. It's kind of a fun, thin border. You may have some border stickers that you like that might work too. Depends on what you're using for your papers and the collections. Kind of dig through your stash of stuff. Get this on the other side. Then I'll grab a pair of scissors. I have a little bit of, I can clean up to do on these outside edges just to snip off where it overhangs. Also, if you wanted to clean up your top edge, I can tell up here, maybe I'd want to do a little bit of cleanup, and the same at the bottom if I wanted to. It's kind of to your discretion. It depends on how even you were along the bottom and the top edges when you put those strips on that 6x10 piece of paper. But here you're starting to see that we could, of course, play around with how our layout looks. It really just depends on how you want to put this together. I see a question from Virginia asking where she can find the directions. I have the handout available on my blog. It's available at meganjacks.com. Remember, it's Megan with 2 G's. And now we're kind of into the point where we can see about how some photos are going to work. So I printed some photos. I don't know, I will probably use mats, but I'm giving myself some flexibility on this because I really wasn't sure. I give you an idea of some placements for your photos. I do mention in here, over here where it says finishing the layout, I show using 2 large variety mats, which are the 4.5 by 6.5 inch mats, which let you then put in 4 by 6s. But that really just depends on your what you have available. I don't have I would have to cut some 4.5 by 6.5 inch mats to use on this, which I totally can do. But I'm gonna see how my photos are gonna place first. Some of the photos I did, like this is not a 4 by 6. I printed it on a 4 by 6, but I wanted it to be a little bit more horizontal. So it's cut closer to 3 3/4 tall by whatever. I've got flexibility to crop my photos out, I guess is what I'm saying. So I'm gonna come over here. I know I want the overall ballpark. This is, you know, our seats we had pretty good seats. I've got a couple pictures of 2 different players batting. Like I said, my photos are not the best. Here's my favorite player. This Dalton Varsho used to play for the D-backs, and we traded him to the Blue Jays and broke my heart, but I was excited to get to see him play. And so they had a nice thing up on the screen because it was his first time back in this at the field since he'd been traded, and just some more photos. And I have a couple pictures of Varsho batting and then out in outfield. So these are kind of the photos that I'm working with. So now it's a matter of just getting things, how do I want them to work on here? And I might come in something like this and then do Cattell over there. I have 2 pictures, Corbin Carroll batting, Corbin Carroll, he's on batting, and then I think he's over here on base. And then pictures of welcoming Varsho back. So I need to crop some things down. This is another one of those. It's not quite, it's 3.5 tall by about 6, or 3 3/4 tall by the 6 wide, because it was I needed more space than to make sure that it was going to work. So when I printed it, I needed it to be, I had white at the top and the bottom. This picture here, I think I'm going to go ahead and crop down. Find my photo trimmer. So this picture here, when I cropped it down, it is 3 3/4 inch tall. So I'm going to take this picture down to 3 3/4 inch square. I'm going to do that by taking some off the top and the bottom to get it to be 3/4 inch tall, 3 3/4 tall, and then I'll bring it into square. So I chopped off a bunch. I'm going to go ahead and chop this at like 4, just over 4 inches. And the reason I did that, I chopped it at 4 1/4 because I want to know, do I need to chop more here off this side to make it square, or I'm going to actually come in behind the umpire because I want to give more leading edge in front of the batter. So there, that is 3 3/4 inch square. I will be able to use a 4 by 6 or 4 by 4 mat for this. Judy's asking about the border. Do I have a border punch in this sample? So I do have a border in there, the cat border. So it's kind of like, well, what am I going to do at the top and the bottom? So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to grab chevron. Chevron, this is an older, sorry to use one that's retired. I'm going to use chevron because to me, chevron, I can do this. This is bringing in the baseball theme when you don't have a lot of baseball stuff to work with. I'm going to punch along the top here and the top bottom, or the bottom, and then I will go ahead and put red behind it to give the illusion of laces. So let's do that really quick to kind of get how that's going to look. Now, one of the things I have to think about here is, do I want to punch this black piece as well, or do I want it to punch just the white? So if I want it just to be the white, should have punched it before I put that on there. But you know, hey, when you're designing stuff, sometimes you don't think about it, right? You're like, oh, I got this together. Now what am I going to do down here? If I had thought about it, I would have punched it first, but I didn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift my paper, put this in my paper holder, and we'll punch. Judy's relieved. She's very relieved. I think she was a little nervous that I wasn't going to get that border worked in there. The other one that I like for baseball stuff is sometimes I will use, I think it's called circle chain, this one, because it's just a bunch of circles. It's kind of fun. You can weave some paper through it. I've used cable weave. Yeah, that was it. When I did some Mariners, I think it is part of Scrapbook Live. Another one I did the Mariners game, and I used cable weave, I think, on that one. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to grab I can go ahead and resecure that corner down. And I can grab my cranberry again. I got to make sure, remember I cut off a 1-inch strip. I want to make sure what side am I working with here. I don't want to cut this edge because that's the short edge. I want to make sure I cut along the other edge, find my trimmer, and I'm gonna cut about a 1-inch strip here, maybe a little bit more than 1 inch. It should definitely cover. I'll cut 2 of them because I'm gonna need a second one for this page over here. Robin's saying she used that layout for her Blue Jays. The Blue Jays have had a rough season. I feel kind of bad. They kind of blew the team up a little bit, traded some players. So for those of you who are baseball fans and are looking for a fun little bit of trivia that's going to be coming up soon. So the Blue Jays had a catcher named Danny Jansen. And the Blue Jays played the Red Sox earlier this year, and that game was rained out. They started it, but they had to stop it because of rain. And they said, we'll pick it up the next time the Blue Jays play the Red Sox. Danny Jansen was the catcher for the Blue Jays when that game happened. And the Blue Jays traded Danny Jansen to the Red Sox before the trade deadline. So this upcoming Monday on the 26th, the Blue Jays and the Red Sox are making up that game. So Danny Jansen has the chance to be he was the catcher in the rained out game that was rain shortened, and he could be the catcher for the Red Sox in the as they finish the game on Monday next week. It'll be the first time in baseball history that a catcher has caught for both sides in the same game. So fun. For those of you who are Blue Jays fans, you'll definitely have to watch that. If you're just a baseball buff, why not? I do agree. I was really, Danny Jansen is just adorable. I do. So Boston got a good one there. Hopefully the Blue Jays can get themselves together next year. I'm going to go ahead and punch the other piece here. Remind myself to stay focused. Can't be talking baseball too much. Coming across the top. You can use any kind of a border here. I'm obviously punching the base paper because it works for my layout. You could lay in a sticker, a laser cut border. You could do anything here that works for your layout. You might have a chain border that you make. You might have some stickers. You could use an edger style and back it. So some options there. Asking about any punches that would work for ice hockey. Well, I'm trying to think. I would go with just some, what might actually work pretty good would be maybe like candy stripe. That one might be good. It's pretty just graphic. You could use, if you have the chevron arrows is one, you could do zigzag, anything that is just kind of graphic. And Yeah, that'd be kind of fun. So here you go. So that, yeah, right there, you can see that's our background. Now it's time to start getting those photos put in place. I will come in with some mats, I think, but you can kind of see I've got a little bit of space here. I will probably just use some stickers to do a title like D-backs versus J's or something along those lines. I'm not 100% sure where I will come in with all of that. I might play around with this a little bit more just off camera to kind of get those little bit of details. You know me, it takes me forever. This Varsho one, I know I can trim this down. I just wasn't sure how I would trim it down. I think I can come in like at 4.5 by 4. Yeah, 4.5 by 4 I should be able to get. 4 3/4, roughly. And I've got the 2 Corbin Carrolls. Those are going to come in. I'm going to trim those down to 3 3/4 square. Again, coming closer to the behind the umpire to give myself plenty of space in front of the batter. And here he's on base talking to the third base coach. Oh, the one thing I want to talk about before I forget, I cannot forget to mention it, is I want to talk about the QR code, right? I mentioned that we have a QR code that I need to work in here. So the question is, where is my QR code going to go? So I have some options, and here's what I did when I did my QR code. So I took my video from my phone and I shared it. That's an option. I have a Samsung phone. I can share my photo with my YouTube account, which uploads it to YouTube. I set it to be an unlisted video, which means you have to have the direct link to be able to watch it. It's not a public video, it's just a direct link. So what I did is after I uploaded it, I was able to get the link to that, and then I went to the QR. I use a QR code generator that creates free QR codes that are supposed to last forever. It's the one I use for Scrapbook Live when I have that QR code in the upper corner of the handout. So I copied that over. You can download the graphic, and I put it a few different sizes on my paper. So what I could do is I have like, this is a 1.5, this is a 1, and this is a 2-inch size QR code. I wasn't sure how big of a space I would have on here. So I have some options. I can come in and cut these out. This is just printed on printer paper. I probably could have come in and done it on actual like photo paper, but this should be fine. And I'm just going to trim around these and see which size I like the best for this layout. I think the 2 is going to be too big, but I feel like the 1 might be too small, but maybe not. The one that's 1.5, I think I could use my square punch. But I have a feeling this 1-inch is going to be just fine. The other thing I might need to do is I need to go to that video and see if I can screenshot and print something on there that tells me but I could come in and do a little screenshot here that just says, you know, game-winning run or game-winning hit, that type of a thing. I could also, if I wanted to, is I could hide it behind a peekaboo pocket. So I could put these are 3 3/4 inch square. I could mount these on a 4 by 4 square piece of cardstock, and that could be inside a peekaboo pocket that moves, where I could have maybe more of my journaling. I could have a QR code, and then I have room to explain what that QR code does for them. And I would also then have plenty of space if I wanted to actually write out the URL for that QR code, just in case down the road, QR codes are, kind of a thing of the past. It's kind of like we put all these recordings on VHS tapes, and now it's like, well, how do you watch them, right? How do you access older technology in the future, or current technology when it becomes older technology in the future? So I've got some options, and I do think I will have here, I might be able to just use a 3x4 pocket, because these are 3x4 photos, and if I just put, like these in a 3x4 pocket, I could open it up, have more of the pictures there, tell a little bit more of the story of why I have a random Blue Jays person on my D-backs layout. So starting to see how this can kind of take shape. I definitely need to play with this a little bit to figure out photo placement. How am I going to utilize that QR code? But I like where it's headed. I just need to fiddle around with it a little bit more. I am going to use some mats. I think that's a big thing here that's kind of missing. I will probably come in with this one will probably be cranberry. I might mix and match. I've got all those colors to work with. I've got the gray, the black, the cranberry, and the teal, blue-ish color to work with. So I'll play around with these a little bit more. I might do up here. I could come down here and come in with maybe some of those sticker strips that we have that you can write on, the Just Right strips or whatever they're called, to do that. Come in here up at the top, maybe come in there. I'm starting to like that look a little bit more, just kind of linear. May tighten these up a little bit so they're in line with the pieces there. But maybe along those lines. There we go. You guys see where this is headed, right? I've got some nice details there that really kind of feel on the baseball. But remember, your photos, when you're doing a layout like this and you're just working with colors and kind of generic patterns, your photos will have a lot of elements that bring in your theme. I don't need a lot of other baseball accessories in here necessarily, because I'm obviously at a baseball game just by looking at the photos. And so that really kind of accentuates the photos as compared to maybe having some details in there that feel like they pull away from there. Now, that being said, I certainly could come in with some baseball elements if I wanted to. I do have some die cuts, not die cuts, it's a die cutting, it's the little metal dies that I could make some baseballs with, and everything. So, all right. I think that's all I have for you guys. Like I said, I'll get this layout finished up and shared with you a little bit later today. Put those mats in place, get the title in there. I need to look up the score. The D-backs did win, so that was very exciting. But I'll be able to get all those details on there and get that layout shared. So thanks for joining me today. I hope you guys have a chance to put your version of this together. Looking forward to seeing what people create. It's always fun to do that. The hashtag is not on the handout, but if you have a pen or a pencil, if you want to write in, it would be the hashtag for today would be hashtag Scrapbook Live 0821. And if you want to share into the Megan, Scrapbooking with Megan is the group. So as I mentioned earlier in the video, this upcoming Monday is a big release day for Creative Memories. We're going to be releasing Croptoberfest will become available for customers. And then there will also be the new fall collection, which is called Autumn Cottage. There will also be the photo trimmer that I was using here. If you didn't grab it as part of one of the bundles, the trimmer bag bundles, it becomes available by itself on Monday. And there's free shipping, which is even more exciting. I also believe we should see the Christmas card kit coming out on Monday, but I'm not sure on that one. We'll know all of the details on Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific. I will have those, I'll announce those on the Facebook page. Just as a reminder, Tessa and I will have a Croptoberfest class. It's going to come up middle to the end of September. We're waiting a little bit on the date because Tessa's got a couple things going on that she's waiting on dates for, but chances are it's going to be a daytime on a Thursday, likely either, let me look, because we talked about this, she and I did, either going to be the 19th or the 26th. But as I said, we are waiting to hear a little bit more. Tessa needs to get a couple things on her calendar figured out, and then we'll have that date for sure. Okay. I think that's all I have for you guys. Oh, just as a reminder too, the secret box is still available. If you would like to know what's inside, send me a message and I will send you details. It should be available on Monday. So if you haven't gotten it yet and you're waiting for free shipping, this is a great time to get it. It's a fun box. I would encourage you not to think so literally on the theme. It's a little, in my opinion, it can be in a fun, versatile way. I don't want to give things away. I don't want to talk too much about it. But send me a message if you have questions about it, and I'll give you either completely spoil it for you, or I can give you maybe some more thoughts on what you could potentially use for it. Okay, thanks so much for joining me. We'll be back next week. I'm really thinking next week we're going to try to do some borders. Haven't done those in forever. So we'll try to get some, I'll figure out some borders for us to put together, and we'll get to play with some of those tools and have a jolly good time. All right. Thanks for joining me. I will see you all soon.